Yeah, you're more than welcome. Of course, I don't want to continue with my talk. It's your turn. So welcome, David Torre.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So when the fine folks at LeanIX reached out and asked if I could give a quick talk on architecting for resilience, I said, of course. It sounds like a great chat. But then I thought, wow, it's quite the blank canvas. I can go in a lot of different directions, and I've only got 15 minutes. So this will not be a technical presentation. I'm not going to talk about architecting multi-cloud solutions or highly redundant VPN solutions or anything like that. This is really more a synthesis of the methodologies that we're employing across EA practices here in the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, given the current state of affairs in the world. You know, resilience, to me, resilience is really strength in the face of adversity. Essentially today, we really just have to adapt our EA practices, and that's really what the context of this presentation is all about. It's about thinking about turning a crisis into an opportunity. You know, typical day in the life of 2020, I don't need to rattle off all of these, but you know, obviously COVID is top of the list. That really turned the world upside down overnight. There's layoffs, school closures, etc. As the a moment ago noticed that there's fires about maybe 15 kilometers or so from my home. So 2020 feels less than stable for many people. And the takeaway from that is you really have to think about your audience today and recalibrate the EA practice and how we communicate with our stakeholders, how we present information. You know, people have a very different focus today. They're focused on all these situations occurring in the world. But of course, you know, famous quotes from an American president, you know, in a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. And this is not just a, you know, kind of happy, glass half full, optimistic perspective. The reality is we really don't have a choice. We have to adapt, right? We have to adapt our EA practices to have an affinity to decision making in today's world. So again, it's about understanding the audience, really getting into the minds of people who are stressed, right? They're concerned about their jobs, their families, and their focus has really constricted way down to what's in front of them, right? It's not about, which is a bit counterintuitive to the enterprise architecture approach, thinking about the big picture and the long term. You know, it's from what we've seen, that approach is becoming less and less palatable to our stakeholders and our decision makers. So just a really quick side story. When I was a kid, my father was a firefighter, right? And by the time I was about 10 years old, my father was promoted to fire chief. So they gave him a car, looked like a police car, but it had, you know, red lights on top. And it wasn't uncommon, he was on call 24/7, and it wasn't uncommon for us to be riding around on the weekends, you know, running errands, and a call would come in, right? I'd hear that sort of tone on the radio, and he would, you know, turn on the lights and the sirens, and within seconds that V8 engine would roar. We'd be doing 140 plus kilometers an hour, 90 miles an hour plus. Cars would be moving over for us, you know, and although inevitably we were en route to a tragedy, right, a structure fire or a traffic accident or something terrible, as a 10-year-old kid, I was on top of the world, right? It was great, you know, you're going fast, there's lights and sirens. And then we would get to this scene, and it was just utter chaos, right? The scene is just always pandemonium. And the one thing it didn't take me long to realize was that on a major scene, there's a green flag, right? You can't be running around asking who's in charge or, you know, what decisions are being made. You seek out the green flag, right? And at nighttime, it'd be a green light. And that was the command post. That's where decisions were being made. That's where you figured out who was in charge and what has been done so far, what the next moves are. And that really stuck with me over the years. That just sort of very simplistic, just seek out the green, right? When it's chaos, that's that one little semblance of calm or structure. Where's the green flag, right? And so, today, I'm really trying to use that in how we pivot EA into a beacon of stability, right? We don't want to be viewed as the ivory tower, strategists that are just too broad. We really need to, continue to have our strategic view, of course, but we really need to be delivering tactical value as well, given all the crisis and disasters and challenges of today, essentially adversity. So again, with the leadership focus being really constrained into what matters, we have to pivot into being that beacon of stability. This is really where EA can shine. It's the opportunity, right? It's turning the crisis into an opportunity. So, presence is just about taking the information we have and adapting it, being adaptable. So it's not all doom and gloom, right? There's some good news. EA is already information rich. We have a lot of the information that executives already need, right? We're kind of sitting on the gold mine, so to speak. That's our perspective. And we hold the keys to enabling decision making, right? So we can answer really complex questions. Essentially, when we have crisis situations, it's not uncommon for executives to, we say in the United States, circle the wagons, right? Really assess what we have, what are our challenges, what could go wrong, how are we, what's our, action plan, and, who better, right, to help answer those questions than practitioners who have such a broad view of the enterprise, right? It's us, right? But the bad news is, this is sort of how we tend to present information to executives, right? We have lots of minutia, we have extremely verbose presentations, lots and lots of options. And again, when leaders and our stakeholders are so focused on, budget cuts or, how are we going to enable a remote workforce and, oh my God, the brick and mortar stores are closing down. What are we going to do? We can't present this information anymore. Maybe someday we can return to a state when people start to relax a little bit more, but right now, the information needs to be sharper and it needs to be opinionated. So kind of putting it all together, like to keep it just ultra simple, the mantra that we use, obviously don't reinvent the wheel, use your existing artifacts that you have, but become the green flag, insert yourself as the epicenter of actionable information, and really sharpen the insights. I think it's best to get out of consultant mode and into opinionated driver mode, right? You really want to drive the needle, come to the table opinionated. Don't overwhelm your stakeholders with options, right? Provide some information, but obviously come to the table with an opinion. So, this is like some practical examples of how in our world we tend to pivot. There's two sections here, artifacts and information, right? So on the left-hand side, these are some like traditional EA artifacts, and on the right-hand side, these are the sort of crisis mode equivalent, we call them, right? So, for example, business model canvases and capability maps, a favorite of mine, by the way, those are great in EA, far too detailed for the distracted executive of today. So what we're doing is we're pivoting these business model canvases into executive onboarding dossiers, right? When a new executive comes on board, we give them almost like the Cliff Notes version of this, and it saves them hours. They get up to speed exponentially faster with this sort of white glove EA onboarding experience vis-a-vis business model canvases and capability maps. Again, answering the questions, where are our risks, where are our opportunities? We put those together in very simple dashboards that are all synthesized on mountains of information on the left-hand side, easily palatable on the right. And there's many other examples here. Application portfolios can be turned into run books. org structures, our charts, succession plans, and flex workforce plans. And really, on the information front, as a practitioner, I tend to be a little bit crisp, but as a consultant, I come into organizations and I really sort of listen to the existing enterprise architects. How is the dialogue with the executives? And the left-hand side is indicative of what I commonly hear, right? The enterprise architect, almost like a scientist, approaches the problem, just explaining everything, application redundancies, and we'd like to invest in CI/CD, DevOps. There's a little bit of jargon in there. Again, getting ultra crisp, coming to the table with an opinion. On the application redundancies side of the house, a much crisper explanation is, hey, let's kill the ERP system, build an app, and get our brick and mortar users online, right? Or, hey, do you want to ship products daily rather than quarterly? This is what we need, right? And the rest of CI/CD, DevOps, that's sort of under the hood details that you can dig into if needed, but I wouldn't lead with that. So, final thoughts, never waste a crisis. Use it to your opportunity. And adapting, of course, is not a choice. The key takeaway is that we really want to make we want to keep EA relevant, right? And in the times where there could be budget cuts, Gartner, I think, projected 8% budget cuts for IT in 2020, following years and years of year-over-year growth. There could be hard decisions made. And if the value proposition of EA is not clear, even in a crisis time, there could be opportunities made not in our favor. So it's really about, staying relevant, adapting to the times, sharpening your dialogue, your narrative with the business, and not being afraid to step on some toes. So these are the things that we live and breathe every day. I know that was really quick, but thank you for your time, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David Torre, for being one of our speakers of day one. And of course, we still have some time for a short Q&A session, and I'd like to roll it out. Are there any questions in our auditorium, in the plenum of the plenary hall of the old German Parliament? We have some attendees on site. I know now it's a long day, but maybe there's something that you really would love to ask David Torre. I do not see anyone on site who wants to ask a question, but maybe we have some questions receiving online. I'm going to wait for a second. Sometimes we have a short technical delay. Yes, we do have questions. David, how do you suggest to model integration metadata, like the pattern, the technology used, and the integration tool or platform used?
So it sounds like the question is, how do we use tools and artifacts in this practice?
That might be. Unfortunately, I do not see the question anymore. It's gone, and I don't know who's responsible for that question. Probably. Maybe you just try to answer it. Should I reread it?
That's okay. I mean, I think to kind of reiterate what we mentioned earlier, the tools and the processes that we use within EA do not go away, right? And I just want to be clear about that. It's more about creating a new facade to enterprise architecture and how we interface with our customers. So all the underlying tooling and EA methodologies, the TOGAF, the ZACMans, using LeanIX, using other tools, right, are still very, very relevant. We don't want to throw those away. But the way it is synthesized to executives needs to be much more crisp and clear.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any more questions? Probably online, as I don't see anyone trying to. I know that you know that we are going to have dinner right now. I can hear, I can feel. So we do not have any more questions, also no more online. So thank you, David Torre. It was a pleasure to have you. And many greetings, a big shout out to California.
Thank you very much. Good evening all.